Hi everybody. I was brought up as a communist in a communist family and a supporter of the Soviet Union. Um, but I visited the Soviet Union on more than one occasion, and what I, the only things I objected to, or not the only things, but what I did object to was one, their attitude to homosexuality, which they considered environmental, in the classic Marxist, that your environment produces the man, change the environment, and you change the person. Well, I think they're quite wrong because the homosexuality is innate in the homosexual. It's just a natural part of their being in the same ways as heterosexuality. But the Soviets contrived to misunderstand this. They also misunderstood popular music and the Western popular music. They misunderstood jazz and rock and roll, which they described it as decadent. But the point that they missed was that rock and roll and jazz were the first music produced by the proletariat. It was from the bottom up. It was not from, as classical music had always been before that, your Bachs and your Beethovens, your Mozart and all the rest of it, from the top down. Rock and roll was something different. And it comes again from, it's a very interesting, if you check the origins of rock and roll singers, they're nearly all Celts and Africans. And that's what rock and roll is. It's a fusion of African rhythm and blues with Scottish and Irish and even Welsh, I suppose, country music. I've never heard of Welsh country music, but suppose they must have it. There's certainly good singers among the Welsh. And the most common name in popular music, I've looked up my index, is Williams. You know, there are more Williamses than anything else. Some of them are black, of course, so it would be a slave name. But and Williams, and the second one in my index of popular music is Jones, which is also a Celtic name. So what happened was Scottish and Irish took their Welsh and took their country music to America, and then in the 50s, late 40s, it was fused with black rhythm and blues and became rock and roll. Jazz and the blues, of course, were produced by slaves. They were produced by the poorest people in the land, people who had no property and no ownership. It was produced by the proletariat, and that's what proletariat means. It means propertyless. And if you, Elvis Presley was of Scottish stock. The Beatles were of Irish stock. Oasis are of Irish stock. I know it doesn't fit all the time. You can always come up with the Stones or Eric Clapton, middle-class English, home counties types, who really are imitative and are not really original. The first Stones records were all copies of Black American blues songs, and great influence on the Beatles as well. But these were music produced by the people, for the people, of the people. And Gorbachev recognized this when he came to when I went to the Soviet Union in '84. The biggest hit of the time was ABBA. It's a rich man's world, where you get a bit of political propaganda there as well. And ABBA seemed, in those days, rather insipid actually, but now you recognise them as a quality pop group. The only Europeans, by the way, very interesting, they are not Celtic. And that's why Europeans, if the French cannot rock and roll, well, neither can the bloody English fella. It's a bit of an exaggeration there. But, you know, rock and roll, whether it's from Hank Williams, who was one of the originators and founding fathers of country music, who was of Scottish stock. Lewis, again, Geraldine Lewis, that's Welsh, because it was the Scots and the Irish who went west and south. To their shame, the Scots, the Irish and the Welsh were the majority of slave owners, because they went south. Scarlett O'Hara, you come to in Gone with the Wind, the rich families were Irish. We're not used to thinking of it. The rich families in the south were Irish, Scottish and Welsh, the Celtic. And they were the slave owners who enslaved Africans. And oddly enough, they were also the ones who merged, probably because of their relationship with each other, living close to each other. The blacks and the Celtic Americans worked together basically, although one worked for the other. But they were cooperating in that sense, and that's how they were able to cooperate innately in the creation of rock and roll, which was only supposed to last 6 months. We thought it was a passing fad. How long do you think you will last? They told, asked John Lennon, you know. Well, he'll last 1,000 years. But we didn't realise at the time. We thought pop music was a transient thing and it would just go away. But it hasn't, because it has its roots in the people. And rock and roll and jazz are socialist music produced by ordinary people, for ordinary people, by ordinary people. Hey, rock on, man!